So now let's talk a little bit about marketplaces and how those things are a little bit different, right? So a strategy around ads is very much about how can I get attention and then drive it back to a channel where the conversion can happen. And so marketplaces is very different. It's how do I capture attention and then drive to conversion right within that experience. And so that is very much about listing products on marketplaces to increase GMV, right? You're trying to get orders essentially on these channels, and you need to be providing the data to those channels that makes that possible, as well as the information that allows somebody to click that, that drives conversion. So whether that's a 2-day delivery promise, or whether it's making sure that you're not overselling because you have available inventory. These are kind of some of the things to think about on marketplace channels. And I think what's most interesting to me about this is kind of the direction that people are taking, which is if you have a distributed direct-to-consumer and marketplaces strategy, and you already have products that you are fulfilling via something like Amazon FBA, Amazon now has the opportunity for them to essentially modularize their fulfillment capability that they are using to fulfill your marketplace orders, and they're now offering that across all your other channels. And it's not just them. There are many third-party 3PLs, so third-party logistics providers, whether it's ShipBob or Deliverr or Shipmonk or others that allow you to outsource your fulfillment across kind of this category. Next slide. So some of the highlights here, which merchants are a good fit for Walmart. There's kind of we start to get into categories around that need to consider, like who does well on these channels. Consumer electronics, home goods, toys, fashion, baby, health, all those kind of things. What we consider when we look at someone like Walmart that's really interesting is it's fairly challenging to get on to Walmart. Like they have a big reviewed process that's fairly gated. And so like we needed to have a partnership with them where we said, listen, Bigcommerce merchants need a 1 week priority queue review. We need to make sure that if someone on Bigcommerce has applied to sell on Walmart, that you, Walmart, are reviewing their stuff. And if they have a problem, you need to come back to our team and we'll help the merchant get through it. What that kind of gated process means is that there's less competition that is on the market automatically, which means there's more opportunity to get more of the market of the mind share and the eyeballs that are on that channel. So kind of new channels where it's hard to get on them, they often have outsized ROI once you do. Next slide. We've got a bunch of resources that you can click into that are all in the portal here. But another example of that is when considering a marketplace strategy, oftentimes it's kind of hard to spin up an owned direct-to-consumer fulfillment and experience all within a new ecosystem. So let's say, for example, you're a US merchant who has like this new growing demand in Latin America. One of the best ways to test and grow your base is to go to third-party marketplaces where they've handled a lot of the infrastructure around the visibility, the marketing, and oftentimes the distribution. And so an example of that is our partnership with Mercado Libre, who's the leading marketplace in Latin America. And so how can you easily put your new products into a new region where you might have a lot of growing demand, but you don't necessarily want to make that investment because you're smart, Jeff, around spinning up a lot of costs with a new warehouse and third-party logistics provider there. This is an example where marketplaces can allow you to dip your toe into the water in a new region that you want to expand to while building the revenue that you need in order to more fully make that bet that says, yes, let's go heavy into LATAM. Next slide.
Sure. And we do have a workshop on this right on the platform. It's a dream team of all things market entry into Latin America with Mercado Libre, Bigcommerce, Payoneer, SedCommerce, and a bunch of other partners. Great.
Awesome. Next slide. All right, so this is an example of like which merchants are a good fit on Mercado Libre. Kind of, you can start to see a theme on marketplaces around which channels do really well because people have directed search and they're often looking for certain categories of things on marketplaces. And this is different. And so when you're evaluating that channel strategy around what do you sell, what category are you in, where should you sell your products, obviously evaluating what category you're in is a really big indicator of what you should contemplate because if you sell regulated items or alcohol, you might have a harder time on marketplaces than you might on an ads channel, as an example. Different rules on each one. Next slide. All right. Wish is really interesting. So we were talking a little bit around some of the challenges. One of the things that I think is most interesting about new channels is Wish has the opposite kind of thing going on that Walmart did, which was originally there for a while. It was very easy to get onto the channel. And so that created some other interesting challenges there around brand adjacencies. But what it did mean was that it was a channel that people could onboard to very quickly and get their products listed. And so kind of as we evaluate, and I think that's, those kind of things around how gated are the approval process to get onto a channel are things that are very, those are very dynamic. They change a lot. And so I think what we have seen, I'm interested to continue to watch kind of how this platform continues to grow based on that kind of use case. But another example of we have seen Bigcommerce merchants able to easily onboard. And when the traffic went back down, when all the kind of in-person experiences opened back up, they were really glad that they had a channel that allowed them to diversify revenue from a bunch of different streams, because they still had traffic on kind of these other channels they were able to easily onboard to. So just something to consider when you're thinking about new channels. There is risk, and yet there is also oftentimes on new channels outsized ROI. Next slide. I think we can kind of touch on that. A lot of these resources exist for you to kind of double click into if that's interesting to you. I think one of the last things that I would love to touch on is really around the fulfillment strategy. One of the things that I think is so interesting is kind of the merging. Previously, a few years ago, there was a very anti-marketplace perspective of a lot of direct-to-consumer brands. That has had to change a lot, unless you're like the size of Nike, where you can own your own community and own all of the pieces of that. And so most of the rest of, I would call, commerce and digital retail has had to figure out how to kind of harmonize that strategy. Which products do I list on this channel? Which ones do I reserve for my direct-to-consumer site? What experiences do I list or not list based on that? One of the things that I think is the most interesting is we know that offering a 2-day delivery promise across your channels wherever you sell drives over 30% additional conversion. And so the ability now that a merchant has to, Amazon MCF has built a native app into Bigcommerce that allows a merchant to surface Amazon as a shipping provider within their direct-to-consumer site. So you can take an order that doesn't occur on a marketplace and fulfill it with the same infrastructure you use to fulfill your marketplace orders. And we're going to continue to see a lot of this cross-pollination in many cases. But I think that that's one of the most interesting use cases that is coming, is we are seeing this mass merge between direct-to-consumer and marketplaces and ads and marketplaces. And now it's just, you have to have a harmonized omnichannel strategy, and it's up to the merchants to determine where should they be, what is their merchandising strategy on that channel, and how should they market and fulfill those orders. Next slide. This is an example of kind of the delivery promise I was talking about, how easy they've made it to connect to Bigcommerce, and how you can track kind of the ease with which you can kind of outline this. And this applies to many other third-party logistics provider as well. Amazon, obviously, is just a very well-known one. This is an example of kind of how this works. And we can have you click into that in the resource center. So that's so we've given you an overview of ads and marketplaces. And I think kind of with the 5 minutes or so that we have left in this session, we've got an area around social commerce. I think I'd love, if there are any questions, we're happy to dig in, and I can kind of give you the high-level tour on this one, and would invite you to look into the resources that exist in the portal as well. Facebook, as an example, Meta now that owns the Facebook properties, Facebook, the Blue app, as well as Instagram, they're built on the same commerce backend. And so you get a lot of leverage when you upload your products to Facebook or Meta Commerce Manager in this case, because it allows you to create a Facebook shop and an Instagram shop and harmonize and kind of connect all of those accounts with your existing direct-to-consumer site account. It also, so onboarding is very quick and easy, as well as it allows you to leverage the new conversions API, which is that data integration I was talking about that gives good signal, as well as sync your catalog that exists on your e-commerce site to your new shops that exist on either the Facebook or Instagram app. Next slide. And so an example of this is, whether it's Solo Stove, who's built a wonderful community as like a digitally native vertical brand. Next slide. Or for those who are figuring out how to drive conversion back to their site with either on-site or off-site checkout, Instagram is really a place that people come to discover new products. So 70% of people have turned to Instagram for product discovery. Influencers is a huge area. I don't know how many people are following the various different trends around this. Accenture published an amazing study around kind of the social commerce revolution that I recommend everybody read. But kind of this is an area we see a lot of growth, although many of those platforms don't yet have that product data from the merchants that they need in order to really drive conversion on the channel. So we're kind of still in early innings, but it's a very exciting space. TikTok, on the other hand, is really interesting because they're kind of defining and moving very quickly. They got to 1 billion users in like 5 years, shopping, entertainment, and community. And how they're doing that is really unique and interesting. And so whether it's the Meta family of apps or whether it's someone like TikTok, kind of the use case is the same. Next slide. It allows you to sync, to take advantage of the market that is there. People are spending 88 minutes a day on TikTok on average. This is crazy awesome because it's a new channel that nobody's figured out yet, which means it's like super greenfield for marketers to figure out clever ways in order to get their unfair share of eyeballs and therefore conversion. Next slide. And so what we really see is similarly in social commerce, Our job is to make it as easy as possible for people to sync their accounts, sync their catalog, place their pixel, and then take advantage of the various new formats that are there in order to drive outsized conversion.